Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. We've got some business to attend to here to kick off the week. We have another foreign-born judge who we've talked about here before, who is working hard to undermine the presidency, coming into the country and thinking that she's the president now and she can enable our election laws to enfranchise anyone, anywhere, for whatever reason. We're going to take a look and learn more about Judge Suknan, who not only is foreign-born, but is presumably still a dual citizen, and we'll learn about her. She just issued a big decision that is slowly chipping away at Trump's executive order to fix our elections, does not want one of the key pillars to go into effect. DOJ obviously going to be appealing this one, but we'll take a look at it just to show you exactly how pernicious this entire endeavor is. The judiciary is a big problem, and Congress needs to act to do something about it. So we got a bunch of reaction to this. We'll talk about the SAVE Act and how that is maturing throughout the system and see whether or not there will be some recourse for this from the legislative branch, but all that coming up. Then we have more on Ruben Gallego from Arizona. He was very close friends with Bang Bang Eric Swalwell, who was thrown out of the California race after some pretty serious allegations were lobbed his direction. And we're learning more about these two. They were out riding camels together all over the planet. But apparently they also had a joint fundraising account, and then they spent some of that money to go to the Super Bowl. So now Gallego, who many Democrats want to run for president because he has the same amount of testosterone as they do, they want him to inherit the party, and a whole Politico story dropped, really combing through his finances and bringing him to task. So we'll take a look at that. We got some Ilhan Omar news as well. And then the Supreme Court had a couple of dissents that they dropped today, really two from Alito that we want to take a look at. One involving some racism claims. If the police stop you and you happen to be a black person, does that give you some special privilege to just kind of walk away from the cops because of your skin color? We'll see what the majority said. And then we've got another one about an influencer who apparently was talking about a murder for hire case in a FaceTime video, and the Supreme Court had some stuff to say about that. So a jam-in stream, and tomorrow we're going to have some big Supreme Court decisions coming out fresh out of the oven, 10 a.m. Eastern time, live here tomorrow on Tuesday. Hopefully you join us for that, because maybe we'll get birthright, maybe we'll get election deadline updates and more. So we're excited for that as well. But let's just confirm the tubes have connected themselves and we are broadcasting all across the fruited plain of the interwebs. And I think we are. That's tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Because here we go. A Biden judge, foreign-born and a dual citizen, is now saying she's essentially the president. Her name is Sparkle L. Suknan. We're going to learn more about her, including going into her Senate questionnaire, where she confirms that she's not from America, but she is now a federal judge, and that makes her basically the queen of the country. And so when the president came down and issued a very beautiful, very necessary executive order that was going to fix our elections by really doing two main things. One, enforcing some U.S. Postal Service standards so that there are barcodes on the mail-in ballot envelopes so that we can track where they're coming from, where they're going, identify fraudulent activity. All of that is a main component. But the other component was generating lists of actual citizens who could use the U.S. Postal Service and use federal government resources to cast their ballots. And in this, we know that the Democratic Party doesn't want anybody to look at the lists. Harmeet Dillon and others at the DOJ Civil Rights Division have been suing the states just to enforce compliance with federal law, to make sure that they actually check their lists, maintain them so that when people die, when people move, when people change addresses, that they're not getting multiple ballots sent to their residences. Well, they don't want anybody to look at the list, because the list, of course, is how you operate your election. They want extra ballots flying all over the place so that people can harvest them and then shove them into the counting machines that then will flip elections from, let's say, Spencer Pratt over to Nithya Raman, exploiting the homeless industrial complex and other things. So the woman that we're talking about today is a judge. She's from Joe Biden's reign, And she was born in Trinidad and Tobago before she decided to come to the United States and then try to take over our elections. She also, though, is a dual citizen. And my understanding is, based on the research that we've done here, is she is still a dual citizen and has not renounced that. And how do we know? Before we take a look at her decision and hit the highlights, it's a 75-pager, and she's doing a ranty screed, but she's got a history of being anti-Trump, which in our opinion she lied about when she was going through her confirmation hearings. She dropped a 75-pager. We'll hit the highlights. The DOJ, I'm sure, is going to be appealing this post-haste. But let's go back to her actual questionnaire when she submitted this into the District of Columbia to be the nominee for a judge. This went over to Lindsey Graham, and her name is Sparkle Lee Suknan. And she says, yeah, I'm a citizen. When did she become a citizen? 2009. So not too long ago, but more time under her belt than some other foreign-born judges who also think that they are the president, like Judge Amir Ali, also out of D.C., who became a citizen much more recently and then decided, again, I'm going to stop the president because I'm going to go through the law, find something that I can latch onto, and then overrule the executive branch and set a new standard for the entire country. We remember Amir Ali was the guy who wanted USAID money to continue to flow to Democrat institutions. So U.S. citizen, 2009 to present, and she was born in Trinidad and Tobago, a little island in the Caribbean, from 1983 to present. And now she's a federal judge who is now dictating how our elections should be governed. Now, what's curious about this is question B was, okay, Suki, if you are currently a citizen of a country besides the United States, do you have any plans to renounce your citizenship? She said, when I became a U.S. citizen, I took the following oath, and we appreciate that oath. But then she said, in addition, in connection with my prior and current federal employment, I pledged to take any steps to renounce my Trinidad and Tobago citizenship as needed to fulfill my duties if those steps were required by law. If confirmed as a federal judge, I would do the same. If it's required that I abandon my dual citizenship, then I'll do it. But if not, then I'll just keep it. And from what I've found on the interwebs, she still has it. She hasn't renounced it. I think that there would be a big say about that, a story about that if she had, but she didn't. And so she was asked questions about President Trump, and even during her actual confirmation hearings, there's some indications here that she lied. For example, here she was a lawyer before she became a federal judge. She had her confirmation hearings, and Josh Hawley, the senator, said, you know, it's interesting that you represented a bunch of investors down in Puerto Rico. Seemingly, you served as the lead counsel for bondholders and vulture funds who wanted to maximize recovery during their debt crisis. She told Hawley in Congress that she had not been lead counsel on this matter, although legal records and Jones Day confirmed that she had been legal counsel. Oh, lead counsel, to be clear. I was not lead counsel, and she was lead counsel. So that's what we call lying to Congress. And so that is a high crime and misdemeanor. She should be investigated and prosecuted for that, or at the very least impeached for that lie to Josh Hawley. Jones Day coming out after the fact and saying, yeah, you were lead counsel. She just squeaked by 51 to 49 in her Senate vote and is now a federal judge. So just like Judge Eleanor Ross, who lies through her teeth about banging cops in her office, we have another judge who kind of just fibs the truth in order to get in. And then our stupid Congress just sits there and does nothing. They lied to their faces, and then it's fine, just let them go. So she got her judicial commission on January 2nd, 2025, and is now trying to wreck our elections. And it's not just me saying that. Here's Stephen Miller, who said, you know, Judge Sparkle decrees that America belongs to any random alien on planet Earth, just like our founders intended. And that if the executive branch gets elected, Trump gets elected by the American people, one of the main promises was to fix our rigged and fraudulent elections. They stole it from him in 2020. He spent the next 4 years saying it was rigged. They said it was not rigged. We're all conspiracy theorists. We said, we actually agree with him. We want him back in there. So we put him back in literally to fix these things. And that's exactly what they're doing. So we'll see what she said in order to undermine all of this. But here's another one from James Percival. He's over at Homeland Security. He's the general counsel, so he's the lawyer there. Presumably they'll be appealing this. He said, you know what's amazing? How hard the left will fight to stop us from solving problems that they insist do not exist. Judge Sparkle Suknan and her latest ruling preventing Homeland from addressing alien voting is just the latest example. And it's wild how there is such not a problem with any of these lists. All the lists are fine. No illegal aliens are voting. Stop crying about it. But when you sue or when you change a rule and then the leftists sue and they're suing all over the place, the judges will bend over backwards and twist themselves into pretzels in order to achieve the outcome that they want. So here's a little bit more from District Judge Sparkle Suknan. And it's always wild, when nobody knows how to say their name. And then they're so foreign that they have to come out here and then input an actual audio recording of her name.
Judge Suknan.
So she's Judge Suknan, I think.
Judge Suknan.
Suck, I think, is what I heard. So
Judge Suknan.
Got it. Suk, suck, something like that. So Judge Suck, got it. So she is now the one who dropped down this decision. It's the League of Women Voters, the same league that we've seen in multiple other lawsuits. These are leftist 501c3s, nonprofits, and other entities that are basically built to file lawsuits, especially election lawsuits. We saw all of this back in 2020. They sued, and many blue secretaries of state entered into settlement agreements with them to change the election rules. Trump comes in under the authority of the American people who elected him, and then he appointed Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, and others. Now, there's other things that they're going to be doing to address some of this, but she says, I'm in charge now. And just to kind of show you how biased this woman is and kind of what a flopper she is, there was another question during her confirmation hearings. The New York Times was reporting on her. She was over at Jones Day. And when it comes to election stuff, this is why she should recuse herself and be thrown out of her position. Question for her in her questionnaire. Hey, Judge Suki, in August 25, 2022 piece by the New York Times Magazine describes how your law firm, Jones Day, represented Trump and the Republican Party in litigation that involved the Pennsylvania election results. Oh, the piece directly quotes you, Judge, as saying this lawsuit by Trump to Pennsylvania to challenge 2020 was brought for no other reason than to deprive poor people of the right to vote. So that's her position on this case back in 2022. However, when asked about this quote by Senator Kennedy, you responded, you said, Senators, those were not my words. I never said Trump is just suing because he hates poor people. Question for her. Were you aware that this piece was published before your hearing? When did you become aware that this piece was published? Said, yes, I read the article when it was published. Okay, so was your statement to Senator Kennedy an accurate and truthful statement? Or did you lie to him about that too? She says, yes, I stand by my testimony before the committee. The quote in the Times article is inaccurate. I never communicated with the reporter listed in the byline or anyone in the media, directly or indirectly, about my internal discussions with my former law partners at Jones Day. Very lawyerly answer. The quote is inaccurate. I never talked to the reporter, and that doesn't mean you didn't say it. So how is it inaccurate? Did you believe that? Do you think that? Did you ever communicate with this guy, David Einrich, the author of the article? She says, no, he first emailed me in March to say that he was writing a book and a former colleague of mine suggested he speak to me. I never responded. He sent several emails asking that we speak to him, and I didn't communicate with him. So in August, the New York Times quotes you inaccurately. If they did you make any attempt to report the error? Or did you tell that after the fact to David, the author? If you would like to include an additional narrative, please do that. She says, no. The partners meeting discussed in the article was an internal confidential meeting. So as a former Jones Day partner, so somebody else was quoting her, my confidentiality obligation precluded me from discussing, and so I just can't talk about it. I never communicated with him, and so I've got confidential limitations that prevent me from actually even talking to you about this. Well, what statements did you make about election litigation by Trump? And she's got to be super neutral right now, right? So she's got lawyers who are helping her craft this. Don't comment on Trump. I never commented. It's all inaccurate. Can you explain yourself? No, I can't explain myself. I'm precluded from detailing what I said. Why? Because I'm bound by an ongoing confidentiality obligation. However, I can affirm, as I did during my hearing, that the article is inaccurate. How? I did not make that statement or any similar statement at the meeting referenced in the article. We doubt that. So have you ever characterized any election litigation as being brought to deprive poor people of the right to vote? No. New York Times said you did. Other people in their article said you did. No, I did not discuss anything with anybody. And other conversations about Jones Day. So they had her positions pretty well dialed in when she was talking apparent garbage inside these internal law firm meetings about Trump and his election litigation. Now she's presiding over Trump's election litigation. Isn't that great? So again, I think she lied, and Wikipedia agrees with me on that, saying she said I was not the lead counsel for some other thing, even though legal records and Jones Day confirmed she was the lead counsel. So she lied on that one. So very likely she lied in the rest of her confirmation documents, and she should be investigated and impeached and removed. So here's what she ultimately decided. She says, and this again, to be clear, we had the two main pillars. The Trump administration in the executive order, they said, follow the law. We already have all these databases. We already have various agencies that are keeping track of Americans, know who American citizens are, and can just work together to identify essentially a master list. And those lists can then be sent to the states. The states can then update and correct the lists. And then we'll get an actual functional election where only people who should be voting are actually voting. And fraudsters, illegal aliens, and others should not be using the mail anyways. So she writes in this memo, it's a 75-pager. She drops it. She says, this case implicates two fundamental rights that protect Americans from government overreach: the right to privacy and the right to vote, which is wild because what we're trying to do in this is literally protect the right to vote. Every time we have an illegitimate voter who casts a ballot, it takes away our share of voting. That's the whole point. We literally just had an election to protect our elections. Trump, that was one of the main deliverables. And now it's the right to privacy. And it's, in this case, the right to privacy about, I guess, American citizens who want this implemented because we just had an election. So is it the right to privacy for Americans who voted for these changes? No, it's not, because we got Trump in office. It's actually the right to privacy for the fraudsters is what she's protecting, or the non-citizens, the illegal aliens. Now, she'll frame this as though it's a right to privacy for you, and you don't want the government overstepping and infringing on your right to privacy, do you? But it's not. It's about foreigners, foreign invaders who are now participating in our elections. And if they're not participating in our elections, why can't we just have a little bit of reform here? And we'll see that it's all just kind of a conspiracy theory. It's all overbroad, but they're fighting tooth and nail everywhere. They fight every single time Harmitsus to get the list. They won't voluntarily give the list. The red states will give the lists over. The blue states will not, and we know why. It's, again, the League of Women Voters. She says, in the past year, several federal agencies have joined forces to create a centralized federal database that contains the private information of U.S. citizens, social security numbers, citizenship status, and other sensitive data. But decades ago, Congress said you can't do this. And the record in this case shows that they created this database and they knew that it violated the law. The agencies were scrambling to comply with Trump's executive order. They weren't scrambling, they're moving quickly. And it directed them to create a system for mass voter verification. Not really. It was in order to use the federal agency called the Postal Service in order to mail ballots. We don't want to enable fraud in the transaction in the mailing of ballots by allowing illegal aliens to fill out fraudulent documents and send them into the Secretary of State or to the collection bins illegally. So they haphazardly combined and repurposed the private information of millions, including citizenship data, that they knew to be unreliable. So you get it. Since then, states have partnered with federal governments to access this and are actively removing U.S. citizens from voter rolls based on inaccurate information. All in all, the government has trampled on the privacy rights of American citizens in a manner that threatens the sacred right to vote. And it's not that at all. How many times have we read the actual executive order? If somebody, and by the way, they've lost these in two other matters. We saw that they lost the one with Indira Talwani. They lost the other one in DC. And so this is all just like writing a blog post, right? She's just a lib hack who hates Trump and hates actual election integrity. She thinks that Trump, when he was suing in 2020, was doing it to eliminate poor people. This court cannot stand idly by while that happens. And so now I'm going to act and take over all of the elections from Sparkle, from Trinidad and Tobago, who's a dual citizen, who became a citizen in 2009. Last March, Trump signed an executive order. It was a beautiful day. Several lawsuits flowed in the aftermath, and courts across the country have enjoined various aspects. Now, as relevant here, the executive order instructed certain agencies, including Homeland and Social Security, to actually verify citizens. This triggered an overhaul of the system, and it is tying it to the SAVE system, something that has already been statutorily effectuated. The systematic alien verification for entitlements, it's called the SAVE system, not to be confused with the SAVE Act. The 2025 SAVE overhaul modified the system. It includes records of natural-born citizens. It includes access to the Social Security records, including social numbers, and it allows bulk searches. So what happened is the League of Women Voters. These groups are leftist groups closely aligned with guys like Norm Eisen and Mark Elias. They sued to say, you can't overhaul this system. They say that modifications transform the system's functionality, and then they moved for a stay under the APA. This court denied for a failure to show irreparable harm, but now they're showing that the states are modifying their voter rolls. States are running their voter rolls through the SAVE system. So actually being used now, and some of the plaintiffs' members have been wrongly identified as non-citizens and had their voter registrations canceled. And the new executive order, by the way, actually implements a mechanism to prevent that from happening and to remedy that if it does happen. It's a big country. Meanwhile, the court permitted the state of Texas to intervene. Now, the League of Women Voters are moving for a summary judgment. The court agrees that the establishment of this new SAVE Act is unlawful. First, they violate the Social Security Act against disclosure of numbers. Second, they violate substantive and procedural protections in the Privacy Act, so it's about privacy now, which prevent the non-consensual disclosure of certain information between agencies. And third, they violate the APA, which is just a general catch-all provision where you can sue. The court sets aside and vacates the new system. So she overrides all of the modifications and the related notices. She says that they were arbitrary and capricious, contrary to law, and in excess of statutory authority. And you didn't follow the right procedure. So she spends the next 72 pages walking us through all the history, the background of Social Security, Privacy Act, statutory background, where all the laws came from, and how privacy protects the federal government from sharing your information amongst itself. More procedural safeguards. You get the point of it. Don't need to go through the whole thing. This will be taken up on appeal, I would imagine. But then the SAVE Act came into place. Not the SAVE Act, the SAVE system. SAVE is a system administered by Homeland that is designed to help federal, state, tribal, and local governments actually confirm citizen before we grant benefits to all of these people claiming them. And we can't use it. It's subject to the Privacy Act. There were modifications. Trump issued another executive order that modified that, saying we're going to execute the law in a manner consistent with the law. Bunch of new litigation happened, bunch of new privacy claims, and she goes on and on and on. Modified user experience, saying now this is how the system works, blah, blah, blah. Procedural background, bunch of people sued. All these leftist groups, League of Women Voters, League of Women Voters of Texas, League of Women Voters of Louisiana, Education Fund, Voters of Virginia, Electronic Privacy Information Center, they all sued, saying we don't want you to actually be able to check us. These systems can exist as long as they don't actually function. So they say all of this was in violation of the Constitution because apparently the Constitution said we have to let illegal aliens and foreigners vote. Goes through a bunch of standing. We'll fast forward just to save you all the annoyance and the pain. But intrusion upon seclusion, is that what she just said? So the American citizens who just literally elected the president and crushed in all the swing states and handed the House, handed the Republican Party the Senate, now are having all of these changes overruled by some dual citizen foreign-born judge. And when we get down to the bottom of this, she just continues to rip the administration. As icing on the cake, this understanding is supported by the history of the Privacy Act. And so in order to protect American citizens' privacy, we cannot allow the federal government, which already knows everything about you, to just validate your actual citizenship and create a master list. So all said and done, we get down to the bottom of this decision before we see what the Republicans are going to do about this. And she says down here, as we get to the conclusion, that the APA mandates that the reviewing court shall hold unlawful and set aside any agency actions that are illegal, which is what she's going to do now. So accordingly, the court sets aside and vacates the 2025 Homeland changes, the Social Security privacy notices, and other changes in Social Security as unlawful, and further fines and sets aside the new Save Modified system. And so for the foregoing reasons, grants the League of Women Voters their request for summary judgment, and America loses. Texas and the DOJ lose. Signed here by Sparkle Suknan. Don't want to get it wrong, lest her audio recording get mad at me. And that's where we're at. So the DOJ will presumably be appealing that rapidly, and they're thinking about other actions that they can do to get the states to be into compliance. Here was an exclusive from CNN that was reported today saying they're still now going to use Homeland Security funds to push for election integrity. And it's like pressure states into election changes. Why are we paying for your illegal actions? If you're not going to follow federal law, if you're not going to give us your registration list under HAVA and the NVRA, two statutes that unequivocally give the Attorney General the right to go and inspect the list to see if you're actually cleaning them up, and they're not. Judicial Watch sued to identify 800,000 plus ghost voters in California because Shirley Weber, the Secretary of State there, is not maintaining and validating the lists. People move, they don't remove anybody. People die, they're still on the ballot list. So now they're saying, how about we just cut off your funds and just don't give you discretionary funding, which is another good place to start. So the Trump administration is now threatening, and I hope they do, to withhold tens of millions of dollars in Homeland Security funds unless they fix their elections. CNN got their hands on multiple sources and internal documents, and we don't want voter fraud anymore. And here they cite some stupid studies. What studies? And exert more federal influence over how elections are run because the states are instituting essentially a coup. In fact, they will lecture us about how much they do not want illegal aliens voting. And then Los Angeles City will move forward a motion to literally allow illegal aliens to vote in their school board meetings and their city council meetings because they're residents, and why shouldn't they? Then they turn around and they say, no, but we're really serious about not letting illegal aliens vote. Really? You're like legitimately passing legislation to facilitate illegal aliens voting, and we're supposed to trust you that you're working to root this out? So the federal government needs to do something about it. Funding is one way to do it. Multiple states are seeking to prevent the federal government from interfering in elections. They're not interfering. You can go cast your ballot if you want to in person, but we are not obligated to help you use the Postal Service to facilitate your election fraud. Under new rules governing several Homeland Security grant programs, states must now take a number of steps, including phasing out certain electronic voting systems, which are also highly problematic, and moving to hand-marked paper ballots. And why are they so opposed to that? Well, we know. They'd rather just have a black box system where only the election magicians can ultimately look into the crystal ball and say, oh, your future is Nithya Raman. Oh, because if you actually had paper ballots, then there would be a chain of custody and you could backtrace everything versus, let's say, the QR codes that they make you scan and are still using in Georgia that are not going to be fixed until 2028. They must also run their voter rolls through a Homeland Security citizenship verification database, which is the one we just talked about. Now, if not, states would lose out on some funding from Homeland. Good, because they are in open violation of federal law. These grants, expected to total more than $1 billion in the current year, are one of Washington's main vehicles for helping state and local governments prevent terrorism, prevent and protect infrastructure, and prepare for major disasters. Yeah, a major disaster is having rigged elections. Look what it's done to the country when they stole it from us in 2020 and installed a totally brain dead individual named Joe Biden. For years, these grants have required that at least 3% of the funds go to election security, but on the new guidelines that CNN got and are expected to go out to states later this month, let's go, impose a set of mandatory reforms and steep penalties for noncompliance. If you don't fix your elections, then we're not paying you. You're going to lose 20% of the grant money, which would be millions of dollars. One spokesman said no changes to grant requirements or funding distributions are official until they are formally announced and published through proper authorized agency channels. And so this is all speculation. Saying any recipient of federal funding should expect accountability, though, of how taxpayer dollars are spent. This is more pressure from Trump that we elected him for. They've taken similar steps to punish other states over their policies for DEI and more. Courts have blocked some of those efforts. This one will undoubtedly face challenges from the leftists. That's why they sue, because the current rules help them. Just like the current racist, gerrymandered districts help them. Just like all of the federal funding for homeless people helps them. And USAID money help them. The rules benefit their party. The grift is in the gray area, as we say a lot, so they don't want any actual transparency. Now, this would be great. Lots of legal hurdles because the judges, many of whom are foreign-born and dual citizens, are not interested in actual election integrity because it'll disenfranchise their people. But the Constitution gives states control over how they administer the ballot. They're fine to do that. Yeah, that's fine. Congress can pass election regulations, but the president has very limited powers to force these changes. And others say, I think that he's going to be blocked. New mandate targets several pillars of state elections. They require states to conduct manual election audits using methods established by the administration. And you need to verify citizenship. States must also submit a plan to phase out their voting systems that don't use paper ballots, which are tabulators. Most jurisdictions already offer hand-marked paper ballots, but about 30% of voters live in a country that rely entirely on ballot marking devices. Just like in Georgia, you go in, you beep, bop, boop, and you get a QR code. No one can read it. Nobody knows what the hell came out of that machine. Scan it, you're done. So among the places that would be forced to transition under these are Delaware, Georgia, Nevada, South Carolina, and of course, Los Angeles County. The grant conditions also require states to run their full voter rolls through the SAVE system. That's the same SAVE system that Judge Sparkle just invalidated so that they could identify non-citizens. They say it's flawed because it can create some false positives. Okay, so a couple of false positives means no election integrity anywhere for anybody. Is there a reason that person is a false positive? Maybe they can explain themselves. But that means because a handful of people get booted out of the system that nobody gets it. Many states already use SAVE. Others have refused. DOJ has sued 30 states for declining to hand over their lists. And a lot of those are also being overridden by judges until it goes up on appeal. and it's going to take forever. We got to go up to the Court of Appeals, then we have to consolidate all of the various appeals from the various jurisdictions, and then take it up to SCOTUS. Homeland Security grants have already become a tool here. Last month, officials tried to withhold money unless states submitted updated population counts. Again, the census, another tool for their exploitation. And this could be expensive. It's going to cost them a lot of money. Georgia, where the state legislature also passed a law that required hand-marked paper ballots, they're not implementing it. It's the wildest thing in the world. Georgia literally passed it into law, and Raffensperger stalled it out. So we're not going to have a fix for the QR code system this election cycle. The new grant plans ups the ante on Homeland Security. The cost of complying might be even greater than the total amount being withheld. And so it's going to continue to be a free-for-all, but at least Homeland is now contemplating what they can do about it. Now, another U.S. attorney called Redding Quinones down in Florida, he said, voting in a federal election without U.S. citizenship is a crime. 3 non-citizens were just convicted of illegal voting and related election offenses in federal court because it happens. Protecting the integrity of the electoral process and holding accountable those who violate the federal election laws remains a top priority for our office. And individuals who unlawfully register to vote or cast ballots in these federal elections can face criminal prosecution and more. He posted this today, saying 3 non-citizens were just convicted of illegal voting. They admitted to voting in federal elections despite knowing they were not eligible to vote, and they did it anyways. Here is a press release from Quinones that is fresh out of the oven, and it's hard to find all of these people. You have to go validate that they actually did it illegally. Then you have to find a prosecutor to go charge them. Then you have to take that case all the way through an original charge up until you get a conviction. And we're already short-staffed anyways. So this one's coming out of Miami. 3 non-citizens have now pleaded guilty in separate federal cases for once again voting in federal elections. The law says you got to be a citizen to do it. Here are the people who did it. Moises Lima Jr., a Brazilian national who became a lawful permanent resident in 2024. Falsely claimed to be a U.S. citizen, registered to vote. They allowed him to do it down there in Florida. On October 21, Lima Jr. knowingly voted in a federal election. He goes in and votes. He pleaded guilty to making a false claim of citizenship in order to vote and was sentenced on May 27th, and he should be deported. Another one, Gordon Lewis, a Haitian national and a convicted felon, knowingly voted in 2020. Wow. Voted in that one for president. I wonder who he voted for. The guy who was saying he's going to deport everybody, or the guy who said everybody could come in here and have everything that they could ever want, paid for by the American taxpayer. So Gordon from Haiti and a felon voted, and it stood. And a member of the House of Representatives, despite knowing he was not a citizen, he pleaded guilty to voting by an alien and was sentenced on April 15th. And another one, Roberto Figueiredo, is from Cuba. He's a lawful permanent resident. His status had been revoked. He had been ordered removed, but he was not removed. He went down to Florida, registered to vote in the 2020 election, falsely claimed to be a citizen, falsely affirming, checking that box that they say nobody checks. Oh, no, it's a felony not to vote if you're illegal. They would never do that. Here's 3 more people that just did. And again, if you had the resources and the intensity to comb through all the records, there would be thousands more. At the time, Figueiredo was a convicted felon, another felon too. You're not supposed to vote if you're a felon. So it's like missing 2 checkpoints. You're an illegal alien and you're a felon. So that's twice you should not be allowed to vote. Here, have a ballot. On October 1, 2020, he knowingly cast a ballot in a federal election. This guy pleaded guilty to casting a false ballot and was sentenced on February 4th, and he should be deported as well. So all the documents are available. Add 3 to the list. Thank you to the DOJ for actually prosecuting these people. But this is the point. You don't have the resources to catch them all. And in many locations, like in California, they put up guardrails and roadblocks to even prevent you from gathering the evidence so that you could identify them. Part of the plan. Now, Democrats are getting nervous about some of these reforms. You can see that Democrats are worried, according to Just the News. In one letter to Mark Wayne Mullen, Raja Krishnamurthy, wonder where he's from. He warned, he said, if you send ICE or Homeland Security to voting sites, it's going to create a chilling effect on voter rights. Why would that be? Why would ICE, standing outside of a voter registration facility, chill an American citizen from going in there? Because ICE can't do anything to that American citizen. Very interesting. He said even the perceived presence of immigration enforcement near polling places would chill lawful voter participation. Why? Last week, Mullen made the argument to CNN, the new Homeland Security Secretary. Yeah, we may deploy ICE to these locations, saying there is a potential for non-citizens to show up there. We just saw 3 of them who pleaded guilty to doing exactly that. We're going to make sure that our Constitution is upheld, said Mark Wayne, meaning that only citizens of the United States are actually voting. That's the most important thing we can do. Someone else called Sean Morales Doyle spoke in Illinois about this. There was a commission, said that Homeland's Operation Midway Blitz sought to detain undocumented immigrants with criminal records. But we don't have any plans to deploy ICE. I hope they do. Again, why would it suppress an American citizen from showing up? Are they just scared of federal agents? Why? In this one, another one, Delia Ramirez, wonder where she's from. She issued a statement last week after reporting from Axios saying the Trump administration is using Homeland to violate our rights. What rights? Are you here legally? Then you're fine. Stop crying. Erode our privacy, chill dissent, and consolidate power. All just stupid platitudes from the left. We will not concede the power of the people, even if that includes illegal aliens. Data collected by the Heritage Foundation shows 44 cases of voter fraud nationwide because that's all that is being, no one's prosecuting these. Census Bureau said 154 million people. We just read through 3. We've read through like 44 of them here. Illinois lawmakers sought to prevent people from concealed carrying a gun while at polling locations. Republicans said that might infringe. Lawmakers also overwhelmingly passed a resolution urging federal agencies to refrain from operating at polling locations in Illinois because they want foreigners to come in and vote. And they're not looking for them, okay? They're actually facilitating the commission of federal felonies, as we saw in California. Some group is paying people to register other people to vote. One woman in California on Skid Row already pleaded guilty to that. Then other homeless people admitted on camera that other people came out and said, we'll pay you $2, $3 for your crack to sign this ballot for Nithya Raman. So there are felonies happening on both ends. And the Californians don't care. They're not investigating that at all. They'll call you a racist and a bigot if you even think about it. Those are fraudulent elections of presumably American citizens, but they're election felonies that are being committed. You're not allowed to pay somebody to vote. You're not allowed to get paid to vote. So on both ends, but no one is doing anything about it there because it's all part of the scam. In Minneapolis, in Minnesota, you can vouch. You can bring 8 Somalis, all named Mohammed, and Mohammed, all to come vote. And they just say, do you live with them? They say, yeah. Mm-hmm. All of them? Yeah, 5 Mohammeds, 8 Mohammeds. They're all with me. They all get to vote. No one checks. No one cares because it's all part of the scam. And we're getting ripped off. Every time this happens, we lose our share of voice in the American government. So Mike Lee was out over the weekend. He says we have to get the SAVE Act passed if our foreign-born dual citizen judge think that they're the president and they can undermine the will of the American people. And they're doing it. It's back. They're coming back with a vengeance as it relates to this election stuff. Supreme Court came back down and said, you can't issue your nationwide injunctions. But that's essentially what Sparkle Suki did. She issued an order saying the whole system is invalid. not in DC. She's a DC judge, but her order will have reverberations throughout the entire country. Your whole system, the SAVE system, is invalid. No one can use it. So it's like a nationwide injunction that the Supreme Court said you can't do, but she's just finding a cute little way to do it. So she's also in violation of SCOTUS precedent as she's impacting the entire nation. So Mike Lee says, our senators need to do this. And I just saw another quote from Rick Scott. We'll see if he's out there. They're saying, we don't have the votes to pass it. And Mike Lee says, yes, we do. Get the SAVE Act passed. And if the Republicans, I just have to think, if they're not willing to actually do something useful for their constituency, then I have to presume that they're in on the grift, that they're just, the election system supports them. It supports the incumbents. And I don't know if they're having a bunch of illegal aliens vote for Republicans, but there must be something beneficial about the system that they do not want to change. Lisa Murkowski and others prefer it as it is. They've already got it figured out. They already got the rules of the game all dialed in. That's how they keep winning. And incumbents win like 80, 90% of the time. So if they don't want to fix it, it means they're just as bad as the Democrats. They're just as complicit in having an election system that doesn't actually and support what the will of the American people is. And this is what Mike Lee had to say.
Republicans, Democrats alike. We're talking about 3 out of 4 Americans, regardless of political party, want to make it easy to vote, hard to cheat. That's what the House Passed Save America Act does. And the Senate needs to be willing to do the hard work to make sure that that happens. If we put it on the floor tomorrow and we announce that we're going to debate it until it passes, I'm confident that we can get there.
Okay, so your colleagues, many of them who are with you, they support the Save America Act, say it's just not realistic. If you went to a talking filibuster, they say Democrats get 2 full speeches on every question, not just every vote on a bill.
Great, who cares?
They predict that could tie up the floor for months and months, meaning no nominations, no military promotions, no legislation gets done. And they worry about how that's going to be perceived by, folks out there in America who want things done on affordability and other ways. They say it would take at least months. Your response?
Great, do it.
Shannon, days or weeks can feel like months or years to United States senators who want to be doing other things. The truth is we haven't tried what I believe it takes to get the Save America Act passed, which is to put it on the floor and to say we're going to debate this for weeks. And we'll stay through weekends. We'll stay through previously scheduled recesses if necessary. But we're going to stay on this bill until it passes. Nothing sharpens the mind. Nothing hastens agreement. Nothing will bring about face-saving and perfecting amendments, quite like the obligation to stay in and debate something that is popular with the American people when filibustering senators trying to slow it down are becoming steadily less popular in their arguments.
Yeah, and they're not doing anything anyways. What is the Senate doing? Nothing. So they can take as much time as they want. We're happy to let them do it. And it'll be a great show. But here was Rick Scott over from Florida saying, no, we're not going to do it. We don't have the votes. I'd rather get back to talking about other useless things. Here was Rick Scott.
I invited him to come. I'm responsible for the Wednesday lunch. So I invited him to come to lunch on Wednesday. And let's talk about how we get it done. What can he do? What can we do? But we've got to get the Save America Act passed. Is it hard? Yeah. Do we have the votes today? No. But that doesn't mean we don't have the votes tomorrow. I mean,
Okay.
this is how the process works. You fight every day to get something done. And you listen to people. You say, okay, so what's your issue? All right? How can I solve your issue? I'm a business guy. How do I get my deals done? I built the largest hospital company. I talk to people and solve their problems. That's what we have to do. People want secure elections. We need to pass this.
Okay,
Yeah, and I keep
so maybe I jumped the gun on him. He sounds like he's for it.
hearing like my whole life, the Senate's a deliberative body, so now it's time to deliberate and change minds, and
Yeah.
that's what you do. Senator Mike Lee, who's been a robust voice for the Save America Act, he put this up because there was some confusion that there were not 50 votes for the Save Act.
There are. Mike Lee shared, and the clip cuts off, but he shared an actual post where there were 50 votes for it. And that's enough because J.D. Vance can come in and break the tie. But honestly, it feels like it's just a lot of talking. They just, oh, yeah, no, I'm definitely for the SAVE Act. It's really good. And then they go out and then they say, I'd rather have my recess and my vacation time. And I'm not interested in being there 24/7 for 2 months. If that's what it takes, then do it. If we don't have actual elections, it's not really even a democracy or a republic. It's just a fake country that is being run by the people who run the elections, which is the whole point. So Anna Paulina Luna said, myself and 24 other members have now signed a letter pledging to vote no on any Senate bills unless the Save America Act is passed. And Trump is coming over this week to meet with the senators. And hopefully he says, if you don't vote for this, I will use the entire force of MAGA to destroy your political career. And I will vote for primary opponents for every one of you, even if it's 4-6 years from now. I don't care. Do it or face the wrath. Now the Senate is sending a House package to the House, and to honor my pledge, I will oppose it unless Save America is attached. And Trump can say, I'm vetoing every single stinking FISA bill that comes across my desk. I'm not going to do it. The Senate cannot keep obstructing President Trump's agenda while ignoring election integrity. I call on my fellow colleagues to stand firm and to honor their pledge. And a bunch of people here. Ogles, Harris, Paulina, Corey Mills, Biggs from Arizona, Brandon Gill from Texas, shout out. Byron Donalds is on there, Lauren Boebert, Clay Higgins, Chip Roy, Randy Fine, Andy Harris, a bunch of other people are on there. And one other guy who's been pounding the drum on this is Tim Burchett. Here's what he had to say.
Out and show that the Democrats have been blocking that. And I just think, excuse me, the Save America Act, yeah, I believe it's called. But anyway, you know, you don't know what I'm talking about. You've got to show a birth certificate to play Little League Baseball in America. And yet now here we are, the Democrats are fighting us, saying it's going to cost millions of people the right to vote. Well, those millions of people happen to be illegals and dead. So those are the two categories that they're blocking. So, you know, and we're doing a terrible job at messaging that. For some reason, we don't want to get our hands dirty. And then you look at what's happened in New York. They're electing literally openly Marxist people out and show.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to go that way. The more individuals who are here illegally have babies, unless birthright citizenship closes that spigot, then it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse, which is why we've got to fix the elections right now. And our Senate should just follow Mike Lee's guidance on it, follow President Trump, the leader of the party who is demanding it, and do what it takes to go get Susan Collins and squishy Lisa Murkowski and the rest of them on board to pass this, because the current judges are acting like dictators. And in this decision from Sparkle Suki, she is now essentially saying that the entire federal Save voter verification system is invalid. You can't use it. And so all of the systems that have been in place to create some election integrity are now dead on arrival in essentially a nationwide ruling, once again, from a foreign-born, dual citizen hack judge from the District of Columbia, who, as far as I can tell, is also a liar, lied in her confirmation hearings about being lead counsel for a big problematic entity, said I wasn't lead counsel. She was lead counsel. New York Times reported her about conversations about being opposed to Trump's 2020 litigation. Oh, I never said that. Well, can you explain it? No, I can't, because of my confidentiality requirements for my prior law firm. Got it. Now she's taken over elections. And like Stephen Miller says, it's not for the American people. It's for all the other random aliens from all over planet Earth. You can't even check, because they have privacy rights too. Welcome to America. So we're going to keep our eye on Judge Sparkle here, and we'll see what the DOJ does with their appeal. I'm sure it's going to be coming soon. We're going to be here to continue to cover this. Election integrity is essentially everything. If we don't have real elections and they're all fake, then really everything that happens is basically fake, because it's not rooted in governance of the people. It's governance for the people, but it's not by the people. It's by the people who run the elections. It's by the people who change the rules to enable illegal aliens to vote, people to just harvest ballots so that one person gets multiple votes, to prevent the actual self-governance to which we are entitled, which is our birthright. So we're going to keep our eye on this one and all other election litigation. Thanks for joining, as we do. All right, now, speaking of hacks, we got Senator Ruby Gallego, who is now here. And this one's pretty fun. Ruben Gallego busted, getting a little closer to Bang Bang Eric Swalwell than he cared to admit. Politico did a deep dive with a fine-tooth comb and scraped through all of his financial records. And it turns out this senator from Arizona, who many Democrats think is going to be the next president because he's Hispanic or something, was using campaign cash to take his family all over the place and to buy Super Bowl tickets. And they also brought our attention to this victory fund. These two were so close to each other, maybe even in that hotel room where Eric Swalwell was making out with that hooker. But they created a joint fundraising committee called the Swalego Victory Fund. This is real. It's over from the FEC. You can see they raised a bunch of money in 23 and 24, $56,000 officially from their records, with a bunch of individual contributions, bunch of expenditures, spent $40,000, then transferred a bunch of other money, $15,000 to some other entities, and ended it with $700 cash on hand. So they blew through $50,000, give or take $55,000, all for Lord knows what. Maybe for those extracurricular activities. Ruben Gallego busted. So they give us a very deep dive on this. They say this senator repeatedly used campaign cash to fund luxury outings with his wife, not the wife that he divorced when she was pregnant, and to care for his kids, just like Bang Bang Swalwell was doing. They reviewed a bunch of records. He's an Arizona Democrat and has used his PAC to fund recent trips. Went to Miami, went to Chicago, went to Disneyland and to Disney World on the Democrat dime. And I don't think they really care where their money goes. I mean, they give to the SPLC and they use it to create crosses and burn them, and then to pay neo-Nazis with whom they are sleeping with. Gallego has also tapped that PAC and his main campaign committee for more than $18,000 for childcare, and pays his mother-in-law, his wife's mama, $400 for babysitting. And they also found that on one such occasion, they used a joint campaign account with the disgraced Bang Bang Swalwell to go to the Super Bowl in Arizona. Incredible. Now, federal lawmakers can legally use this cash for some things, as long as those funds are not for, quote, personal use, meaning they may not cover activities that would exist irrespective of their campaign. Leadership PACs are not even beholden to their personal use rule, meaning lawmakers have broad latitude to use the money as they see fit. And Ruben has done that. He's got 3 kids, Sydney Gallego, her mom, their full-time au pair, frequently joining the senators on the donor's dime. One person was granted anonymity to speak candidly about this, so his people are leaking. That's great. Someone said, he just spends his campaign account like it's his personal slush fund. Democrat donors are idiots, and he's using the campaign cash to live a luxury lifestyle. Now, Gallego did not dispute using these funds. He said, this isn't breaking news, you Politico idiots. With the rising cost of childcare and the burden it has on the budgets of American families, Democrats and Republicans regularly travel with their wives and kids. All of that's allowed, so what? Now, he's going to run probably in 2028. I don't know how he's going to get past his voice, but he's thinking he can do it. On Friday, Gallego traveled to South Carolina celebrating Juneteenth. And the pattern of spending, though, could be a big problem because it was very close to Bang Bang Swalwell. His team has recently brought on a White House deputy press secretary to help with communications. And then this article came out immediately. So the guy's doing a terrible job, saying he's going to weigh all of his possibilities for a political future. And one person familiar with his spending said that there was concern among some members of his inner circle that he would not pass the required vetting to actually be the president. Someone said, any person close to Gallego knows he's amazing. He's denied wrongdoing of Eric Swalwell's actions and called for him to be expelled after he got caught. Gallego was one of the strongest defenders of Swalwell. He's my friend. We rode camels together with our shirts off. We may or may not have been in the hotel room together, but as soon as Swalwell got caught, then he's like, I didn't know this guy. He duped me. Anna Paulina Luna told CBS News in April that she had asked Senate leadership to investigate this dude because he also has allegations of misconduct that are also sexual in nature, as well as issues of campaign finance violations, but did not release any details. He said it's just a conspiracy theory. Asked about the status of the ethics probe, Ethics said, we're still looking into it, whether there's a there. So here's some more background. Back in February 2023, 20 days after Gallego had launched his Arizona Senate bid to replace Kirsten Sinema, who was sleeping with her bodyguard or something, Swalwell and the Gallegos and Swalwell's then chief of staff and several donors all went to the Super Bowl. It was in Arizona, and they all went together. The gathering was billed as a fundraiser, and they created a victory fund called the Swalego Victory Fund, which is a disgusting name now that we know the truth about Bang Bang. They were Swalegoing for victory. Okay. So they created a joint committee, and they charged $5,000 for a pre-game brunch, or you could just come for $1,000. That was a copy of the invitation that Swalwell's lawyer handed out. The committee raised $56,000, all but $900 of that was logged. Then they spent $34,000 on Super Bowl tickets and on event tickets, and then they went to lunch at the Henry, nice place in Arizona. That's a nice bill. Donors and the committee included Rick Smith, a high-paid CEO, Dina LaPolte, a celebrity entertainment lawyer. They all went to the Super Bowl with Swalego. Neither Smith nor LaPolte responded to a request for comment, and Swalwell's chief of staff at the time did not comment about this either. They established the joint committee literally for the Super Bowl and for supporters to meet who could actually donate so that they could all attend. They said, we paid for tickets at fair market value. It was all about hosting donors and more. Someone told Politico that Swalwell was just following his lawyer's advice, and tickets were purchased and distributed through the fundraiser. Everything was proper and above board. Now, this victory fund, Swalego, which raised no money after March 2023, was then shut down in 2025. They each had gotten $7,600 in their personal campaign committees. Otherwise, it went to operating fees. They say it is unusual from Politico, though not unheard of, for candidates to fundraise for the Super Bowl. This other guy, a Democrat called John Conyers, he did the same thing in 2010. Swalwell also dipped into campaign funds in 24 to go to the 49ers in Las Vegas. Other lawmakers have gotten this handled another way. Josh Shapiro, also going to run, I'm sure. He got his Super Bowl ticket paid for because of a nonprofit. RNC also paid for World Series tickets for Trump and 11 members of Congress. But it's more common for politicians to pay their own way. Mark Kelly paid his way. Zohran Mamdani paid for his own tickets when he went to the Knicks. And earlier this year, Gallego used the high price of a Super Bowl ticket to campaign on affordability. He said the average Super Bowl ticket now costs $6,700 and they should be free, like a communist or something. So he cemented himself as a battleground tested Democrat. He beat Carrie Lake, a bunch of rigged elections for her. In February 2024, just a month after being sworn in, he created another PAC called the Juntos PAC. And they raised a bunch of money there. Like many politicians, he has used those funds for a bunch of things related travel. This includes retreats at Disney World. He brought his wife and their children and their babysitter. $1,500 in meals there. Used also money to go to St. Bart's for a birthday down there. $9,000 for a Miami Beach hotel. Traveled to Chicago. Spent another $1,500 there. The Gallego spokesperson did not address the birthdays. Well, if these are like not personal things, if these are campaign events, why is he going to these things on his birthday? Well, because when we're there, we're doing fundraising. And there were multiple stops and we incorporated it. It's like, you know, that joke, you sit down with a friend, you're like, how's business? He's like, oh, it's terrible. You're like, great. This whole thing's a business meeting. Great. Anyways, let's talk about football now. That's a whole business expense is essentially what he's doing. The Gallego spokesperson did not address that. Gallego's campaign committees and leadership PAC have also dispersed more than $18,000 in childcare and $400 to his mom, his mother-in-law, babysitting while at a campaign fundraiser. Grandma watches the kid, she charges. The child care reimbursements and trips were first reported by the Daily Beast. Sydney, Gallego, and the children also used campaign committee and leadership funds to go from Washington to Phoenix 13 times. Someone said there's a pattern, saying she just basically rides Ruben Gallego's wave. And so the big thing I think was hilarious is Swalego. So I don't know where all that money went. They say it was for the Super Bowl, but these two were very close. They created joint fundraising accounts. Maybe they also shared a hotel room together, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But there's other financial fraud that's out there, and Ilhan Omar is now revising her reported amounts of income down to about $200. It went from about 30 million down to 200 for her poor husband. So U.S. News NY Post shared this one, saying that Ilhan now claims that her millionaire hubby, who used to be a multimillionaire, made as little as $200 last year. Isn't that amazing? So they dropped yet another financial disclosure report. This one seen here, Honorable Ilhan Omar, honorable. And here's what you see. They've got no money. Unearned income, Congressional Credit Union savings account, only maybe $1,000 to $15,000 in there, $200 maybe in interest. E Street Crew LLC, $200 to $1,000. So husband works at that winery. Remember that big giant winery? Only made $200, maybe $1,000. They're just liars. Rose Lake Capital, no income at all. Then they've got some retirement accounts, SEP IRAs and another IRA, which have nothing in there, just $15,000 or less in each account. Minnesota retirement account, $15,000 to $15,000, a little bit more in there. She's got some student loans. She's got some credit card debt. And that's it. They've had a little bit of travel. So they went to Brussels and they went to Mexico City for something. And they went to another one in Mexico City. But that's all they've got. So Ilhan Omar sent that one in May 13th, now being disclosed. They're broke, no money. The prior disclosure said millions and millions of dollars, but then people realized, oh, was that coming from all of the Minnesota fraud, all of the Leering Center cash that was being funneled into your pockets? Now she's broke. So the husband was once valuing the whole thing at $30 million down to 200. It's like they must just think we're idiots or just don't care. No, it's like $200 now. You said it was 30 million. That was a mistake. Okay. The embattled socialist, Tim Mynett, he made no income from his entire company, Rose Lake Capital. No money at all. There's the couple right there. The only money he made was less than $1,000 from the wine business, which sold bottles before they closed that down. Value of the assets tucked in between these two numbers. You see them there. And it makes no sense at all. They reported a bunch of money. They went from nothing to between $5 million and $30. Then everybody said, oh, yeah, so you're fraudsters. You just took all that money from your Somali fraudsters. Then that spurred a congressional investigation. Then they started looking into the funds. Then they refile and they say, actually, it's zero. The whole thing was just a big fat discrepancy. And it was an accounting error. And we really have no money. So they sold wines called The Devil's Lie, which is perfect. It's like a picture of the both of them on the bottle. Just, used AI a little bit to change it up so they're not recognizable. Rose Lake makes no money. So he's a consultant and apparently very unsuccessful. Rose Lake, despite reportedly being worth nothing, Rose Lake Capital still generated income between $100,000 and $1 million. But the RNC said, voters see right through this corrupt lie. Omar has spent her entire career covering up for Democrat fraud, so it's no surprise she's doing the same for her husband. Seen here. The pair met working for Keith Ellison, another massive fraudster. Ellison was caught on tape literally being bribed by Somalis, claim he rejected. She didn't return a request for comment, of course. And so here's how Fox News was reporting that.
After another for Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, after all of these issues surrounding her reported wealth, and this has all been chronicled in the New York Post, Omar's husband Tim Minette once listed his net worth to be up to $30 million in 2024, and that caused a push for an investigation into the business holdings of the couple, but that ended up being a clerical mistake, according to the Congresswoman. Instead, a new filing has listed her assets between $20,000 and $125,000. Big difference.
Wild.
Minette's net worth is the most staggering part of this, though, with a reported income between $200 and $1,000. And despite that low income, Minette's company, Roselake Capital, reported income between $100,000 to $1 million. His defunct wine-based company reported around $5,000 in income of last year. The latest filing will no doubt add further scrutiny to Omar, with Republicans continuing to push for an investigation into her private holdings. An RNC spokesman told the New York Post this: voters see right through the corrupt lies of Ilhan Omar. Omar has spent her entire career covering up Democrat-enabled fraud that cost taxpayers billions, so it's no surprise that she would do the same for her husband.
So they're lying. They know they're lying. They know that we know they're lying, and they continue to lie. And it's just, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. So it's all part of the ransack of the American population. And then you get guys like Ruben Gallego, who is very close with Bang Bang Swalwell, and they'll lecture everybody about affordability and about how hard things are as they continue to take donor money and repurpose those for trips to Disneyland, and then scream and shout about, how bad everything is, in order to raise money to go spend it on their families and their other affairs. In this case, the Super Bowl, and maybe other extracurricular activities that more will be revealed on, no doubt about it. So we'll keep our eye on these people, but Ruben Gallego now has people talking, which is interesting. He's got some people inside saying this dude is really exploiting these things, and the connections to Bang Bang continue to grow. We'll keep our eye on this one. He, I think, will run for president because they think he's like Hispanic and like, ex-military or something, and they really love his voice and his low T. So we'll see if more comes out on this. Thank you for joining, as we do. All right, we got one more update, some Supreme Court news, and then we'll hear from you. Justice Alito and Clarence Thomas now dissenting in a new Supreme Court order handed down. And it's an interesting one because it's about racist stops, whether cops can stop somebody and see whether they've got weapons on them and what that person can do in reaction. And if their skin color is of a certain variety, whether that changes the analysis. And the Supreme Court is saying it does. So it's a short dissent, a little bit of background on this case, but from Courthouse News, they explain what happened in this case, that a lower court, before we got to the Supreme Court, found that officers with the city's gun recovery unit unlawfully stopped a guy named Dante Carter. Dante's on the street. He's strapped. They said, you can't go ask him anything. And the District Court of Appeals suppressed the evidence that was obtained during the stop, vacated his firearm and his theft convictions, and let the guy go. So we go to appeal. Was that wrong? Was that decision erroneous? Supreme Court said no. Trump asked the Supreme Court to review that decision, saying the appeals court overturned this dude's convictions because as a black man, he could have reasonably believed that he had no choice but to comply with the police stop, despite the lack of legal grounds for the stop. Now, according to the government, Alito will explain, that approach makes the seizure analysis race specific. Okay, so lower court was injecting race into the analysis. Government says race shouldn't come into the analysis at all, saying the same conduct is a seizure for one person, but not another person based on their race. So if he was white, analysis would have been different. If he's black, would have been different. Trump administration wrote to the Supreme Court, injecting these stereotypes into the Fourth Amendment puts that amendment at a cross purpose with equal protection. It puts officers in the untenable and unworkable position of needing to rely on racial stereotyping in order to assess the legality of their conduct. Supreme Court denied the petition, so his convictions are eliminated. Here's what the Supreme Court said. Looks like it was 7-2. Case is Dante Carter versus the United States, coming out of D.C. And the petition by the Trump DOJ is denied. Thomas and Alito not happy about it. Here's what they write. On a September afternoon in 2020, several plainclothes police officers approached a group of black men who were lounging on a sidewalk. The officers were responding to, quote, an uptick in shootings and sounds of gunfire in that area. Respondent called Dante Carter was among the group. An officer approached Carter and said, "Hey, are you carrying a weapon?" When Carter said no, the officer asked, "Do you mind hiking your pants for me real quick?" Like a voluntary request. "Do you mind?" He could have said, "No, I'm not doing that." "No, I'm not going to do that." "Do you have any cause for this?" Or, "No, I don't have to do that." Carter raises his pants, Dante. As Carter complied, another officer standing a few feet away saw an L-shaped bulge in the front of Carter's pants. The officer pointed out the bulge. "Well, what is that?" Carter said, "It's my phone." That officer nonetheless then frisked Carter, and after a brief struggle, the officers recovered a stolen firearm hidden among Carter's multiple pairs of compression shorts. So then Carter was charged with firearm and theft offenses, saying he moved to suppress the gun, and a statement that he had made after his arrest. He argued the officer seized him in asking him to hike his pants, and that the officer lacked reasonable suspicion or probable cause at that time. D.C. Superior Court denied the motion, saying no, he asked voluntarily, like, "Could you lift up your shirt?" He says, "Sure," he did it. D.C. Court of Appeals, though, reversed it, said it was illegal. After concluding that the officer's conduct did not enable the court to objectively determine whether Carter was seized, the court, relying on its precedent, said that it, quote, the Court of Appeals, it must look to a further fact. It must look to the defendant's race in this analysis. So we're in criminal law, you analyze, every interaction, every step of the factual development in order to determine when did the seizure occur? When did you need to establish probable cause? When was there reasonable suspicion? And then one gets you into the other. A good example of this is like finding drugs in a driver's trunk. Okay, how does it all start? With a traffic violation. Somebody's speeding. Cop sees that. Oh, speeding. Got an indication that a crime or a civil violation occurred, depending on the. Stop them. Go in. Conduct an investigation. The traffic stop leads you to this side of the car. Open window rolls down. You see a person with bloodshot, watery eyes, an odor of an intoxicating beverage or something coming inside, open container, whatever. Then you pull the person out, arrest them for DUI. Then after the arrest, then you impound the vehicle. Then you have an inventory search. You find the narcotics in the back of the vehicle. One step gets you to the other step. It's like following the bouncing ball. So in this analysis, this judge, the Court of Appeal, says part of that analysis is a defendant's race. So the proper inquiry, the court stated in the Court of Appeals, was whether an objective and reasonable person sharing the defendant's generalized lived experiences arising out of their racial status, that is, sharing Mr. Carter's racial status as a black man, would he have felt free to terminate the police encounter? Okay, so if a cop comes up to, I guess, a white guy and says, "Hey, lift up your shirt," white guy says, "No, I'm exercising my rights under the Constitution of America." Cop says, "Oh, okay, I was just asking, have a nice day," moves on. But a black man doesn't, I guess, understand that right, or feels like, according to his lived experience, he doesn't feel free to terminate that encounter. And so at that moment, that was a search, not a voluntary request. And there was no reasonable suspicion for that search. So as a black man, he would not have felt free to terminate that because he's black, or that does something. So the court then discussed scholarship in the court's view suggests that black men are more likely to comply with police demands rather than exercise their constitutional right to terminate suspicionless police encounter, right? This is why when a cop asks you to do something, you don't just give them consent. Otherwise, they just say, it's a consent search. Hey, can I come in and look around? No, get a warrant. Hey, do you mind opening the trunk or let me? No, no, I'm not going to do that. And we had the whole 1, 2, 3 rule here that we talked. We won't belabor that. But terminate a suspicionless police encounter so black people think I can't do that. White people, I guess, can. And the court said that the officer's request that Carter hike his pants was at that moment not a request for a consent search. It was a seizure because of the elevated effect that the request would have had on an objective and reasonable black man in Mr. Carter's shoes. So again, if it's white, different analysis. Asian, different analysis. Black, different. So Judge McLeese concurred in the judgment. This is Alito writing. He remarked that the panel majority had appeared to give dispositive weight to Carter's race. He also expressed uncertainty as to whether the race of the suspect can permissibly be considered in assessing whether a seizure occurred. So race impacts a consent search now, I guess. So the DOJ said it shouldn't. That was a consent search. He showed up as soon as we got to see the bulge in the pants. That was then reasonable suspicion that he had an illegal firearm. Can't have those on the streets of DC walking around. And so it flips the whole analysis because he's black. The government asks us to review. It argues that the decision below is inconsistent with the established precedent on the question whether a person who is approached and asked by police officers a question, is that a seizure under the Fourth Amendment? Now, our precedent, the government says, asks whether a reasonable person, which is the objective standard, not whether you, the person here at this date, location, and time, whether what you felt, but whether a reasonable person in this environment would have felt a certain way. Does a reasonable person feel that he or she is not free to end the conversation based on all of the facts? Very specific. Like, are you boxed in? Are there 3 cops around you? Was this cop just walking by and said, hey guys, we're looking for, guns, just wondering, would you, lift your shirt up for me? And he's far away. He's not, impinging this person's freedom of mobility. Like, it's a different analysis. So in the government's view, the injection of a person's race into the reasonable person test contravenes our decisions, Alito writes. And Thomas, who is a certified black man. The government also questions the reliability of the studies on which the Court of Appeals relied. And it argues that the Court of Appeals and the test will hamper legitimate and important police work in DC. So Alito says, I would grant this. I would say that we would take what the Court of Appeals says, because they reversed the lower court, and handle it. He says the Court of Appeals appears to be committed to the test that it used in this case, and the lawfulness of that test is an important question for both doctrinal and practical reasons. Under the test, officers will need to quickly assess a person's race. And if officers in courts must craft special rules for black people, what about dark-skinned Latinos? Good question. What about other Latinos? What about other members of minority groups? Well, I guess that's going to be the new standard. Certain groups get certain privileges under the Fourth Amendment now. So we have said that our Constitution is colorblind. We've said that a lot in our case law, especially most recently in 2023 in a case called Fair Admission. It almost never allows government actors to treat people differently based on their race. Louisiana versus Calais. That was the big gerrymandering decision where they created separate but equal districts. And we have rejected the proposition, reversing the separate but equal districts. And we have rejected a proposition that the Constitution permits an individual to be treated differently based on a perception that members of the same racial group, regardless of their age, education, economic status, or the community in which they live, like they think alike. All black people vote Democrats, so we're allowed to put them into a little separate but equal district. It is dangerous to allow an individual to be treated differently based on statistics, studies, or expert testimony that purports to show that members of the racial or ethnic group are more likely to act in a certain way than are other members of the group. And here, that special treatment help the individual. In other situations, it will not. So perhaps the test has legitimate justifications, but in any event, Alito says it is important and it warrants this court's review. And so I therefore respectfully dissent from the denial of cert. And so that guy's charges are gone. The Supreme Court said the Court of Appeals decision can stand. Once they saw the L-shaped bulge, that was not enough. And they say black people are disproportionately stopped in D.C. Interesting. I wonder if there's any causal justification for that. And there are gun crimes all over the place. Apparently, this guy stole a gun. And look at this. Yeah. It was a federal agent's stolen gun. So he literally had a federal agent's stolen gun in addition to it. Walks free. So that's what the 7-2 Supreme Court said today. Judge Thomas and Alito dissenting. And there was another interesting one that also dropped. And this one was about did I delete the other? This one was about a social media influencer. And let me see if I can grab this background. Yeah, in this one, another dissent from Justice Alito. This case was a Texas woman who was convicted of hiring someone to commit murder. They denied review. And in this case, the court sent the case of Ashley Grayson. She's a Texas social media based influencer. She was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for hiring someone to kill a rival influencer. What's going on out there? Back down to the federal appeals court to reconsider its ruling. The government's case against Grayson relied heavily on a FaceTime call between Grayson and another influencer called Olivia. So Ashley and Olivia are on FaceTime. Unbeknownst to Grayson, Olivia recorded the phone call. And Grayson, Ashley, was asking to advance a murder. Was asked for an advance on the murder that Grayson had solicited her to commit. Okay, so Ashley asks Olivia, can you murder somebody? She says, yeah, but I need some money. Grayson tried to bar prosecutors from using the recording of the call. She said, I was not allowed to be wiretapped, and this was a recording of the call. In the trial, the Grayson case, the judge allowed the prosecutors to use the recorder, and the Sixth Circuit upheld that. Grayson went to the Supreme Court. She argued, and the federal government agreed that there is no clean hands exception to this. The government then nevertheless urged the justices to deny review or to send it back down for another look. D. John Sauer from Trump told the court that there's no need for it to intervene here because this is an issue that rarely arises. They did send it back down, and Alito penned a one-paragraph dissent from this that we'll take a look at next. And here's what Alito had to say. He said, all right, the court said the petition for a writ of cert is granted. The judgment is vacated. The case is remanded back down to the Sixth Circuit for further review because the DOJ was even agreeing with some of these arguments that this should not have come in, this FaceTime recording. But Alito dissents. He says, all right, listen, this petitioner is challenging the admission of a FaceTime recording. It shows her offering to pay for murder. The Sixth Circuit held that the law did not require suppression of the recording because that provision has a freestanding clean hands exception. The U.S. now concedes that that was the wrong rule. But nonetheless, the government says that any error was harmless anyways. So what if it was admitted? There was a whole bunch of other evidence that would have convicted her anyways. I agree. Even setting aside the FaceTime recording, there was a mountain of other properly admitted evidence that proved her guilt. Most prominently, the evidence included a recording of a separate call that she made to the FBI in which she described the contents of the FaceTime call and acknowledged that she had offered to pay for murder. Because the FaceTime recording was cumulative and overwhelming evidence of guilt, I would deny the petition. And I think there was another interesting analysis on this, and I don't want to get the facts exactly wrong. I think I accidentally closed out the tab that I had that gives us some more facts here. Yeah, here it is. The Supreme Court on Monday called for a new review of this. The facts here were wild. Made for TV case asked whether law enforcement could exploit a loophole in federal law. Illegal wiretapping. Ashley Grayson said her case is especially significant now because everybody's recording calls. She was from Dallas. She met a Memphis influencer, a hairstylist called Olivia, back in 2017. Grayson offered Johnson credit repair services in exchange for promoting her business. They then partnered in a 2022 giveaway in which Grayson purchased a home for a single mom. Johnson's mom got the house and lived there rent-free, but Grayson retained ownership, and then there was friction between the two. So Olivia, Johnson, Ashley, Grayson. Now, during a trip to Texas, Johnson, who has mom living in the house, says Grayson offered her and her husband $80,000 to kill 3 people who had criticized Grayson on social media. Dang, man, just block them. Johnson recorded a FaceTime call in which they discussed the scheme and later used the video to persuade Grayson to transfer the deed to her mother, okay? So Ashley and this influencer create this fake thing, buy a house, probably get a bunch of money, gifts the house, keeps the deed and ownership of the home, but then lets Olivia's mom live there. Olivia wants mom to have the deed. So Ashley calls, records, offers a hit, $80,000. She records it. Then she uses that as blackmail to say, I'm going to release this, that you're going to murder people for $80,000 unless you give me the deed. So then Ashley, the one who wants the people dead, she then calls the FBI. She says, hey, this woman, Johnson, is extorting me. And the FBI then investigates this. Johnson then turns over the FaceTime recording, and law enforcement then arrests Grayson. And they say, hey, you're offering to hire people for $80,000. And now you're getting blackmailed over the murder. Grayson argued the recording couldn't be used against me, and the law prohibits wiretaps and recordings. Sixth Circuit declined to exclude the call. Both Grayson and the government agreed the clean hands exception was unlawful. The government said her appeal should still fail because it's harmless error, and the case is going back down to the Sixth Circuit, and we'll see what they do with the new decision, finding whether it's harmless error or not. So hilarious. I mean, it's just wild. She offers to pay $80,000 to kill 3 people. That gets recorded, used against her for blackmail, goes to the FBI to report the blackmail. They find, oh, you did, though, offer $80,000 to kill people. Charge her. She says, you can't use the recording against me. It's like we're dealing with, some not too bright people on this one. So Ashley Grayson will have a second shot at whether that should come in or not. I don't know if she was convicted or not, but that's what we're dealing with. So some interesting Supreme Court things. We've now got a race-based analysis for consent searches at a very initial investigatory phase in police investigations on the streets. Supreme Court didn't want to hear that one. We're going to have a lot more coming from the Supreme Court soon. So we'll keep our eye on all of the SCOTUS updates. Thanks for joining, as we do. All right, and a reminder again, Supreme Court decisions tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be here, because birthright citizenship may be coming down. And boy, I hope it's a good one, or else we're going to have a rough morning. But we're going to be here tomorrow, so come back and join us. It's going to be public across the board, wherever you're watching. We'll be back 10 a.m. tomorrow, and very likely on Thursday too, because more decisions coming on Thursday. We'll see if we get SCOTUS with some good releases or what. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. If you're just getting here, quick updates on what we talked about. Sparkle Suknan, foreign-born dual citizen judge, now taking over elections, invalidating the entire SAVE system that validates citizenship that states were already using. She came in to the country, now running our elections. And in my opinion, she's a liar because she lied to Josh Hawley during confirmation hearings, and even Wikipedia confirmed that for us. So we read through some of her decision. It was a big, long screed about, I can't stand by and let you do this, and privacy for illegals and all the things. So we fast forwarded through it. Stephen Miller had comments about it. James Percival, Homeland General Counsel. We looked at some of her prior statements about Trump and his positions on elections. Read through that. We also saw CNN is saying Homeland might be moving to cut out some funds from the non-compliant states. We talked about 3 non-citizens who've all now pleaded guilty to voting in elections, which they say never happens. Well, it did again. 3 more guilty. These people voted in Miami, and some of them voted even in the 2020 election. Isn't that just swell? We also saw Democrats very nervous about this. We had base Mike Lee here. Rick Scott says he's for it, but we'll see. And then Luna and Burchett. Then we saw a little bit more about Ruben Gallego and his Swalego fund, where they made $50,000 and then went to the Super Bowl with Bang Bang Swalwell. So they were very close together. Then we talked about Ilhan Omar and now how her husband was making $30 million and now makes $200 in more Democrat fraud. And then talked about some kind of minor SCOTUS cases, but some interesting ones. And now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. It's a beautiful Monday. Hope your week is off to an incredible start. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and for liking the video on your way out if you're heading out of here. I think I saw some donos or maybe some new membos who came in the house. Yes, a couple of comments. Thank you, friends, for sending some love in. What a beautiful Monday it is. God bless Texas, man. Amen to that. Let's see who's here. Oh, gosh. We got some Swalwell comments. Those are always extra spicy. Yeah, here's a poo. Who am I kidding? I am no citizen, from a poo. Well, at least he admitted it. Was he a citizen in The Simpsons? I don't know. But I don't think so. Hey, weekend in Vegas. Yeah, James Ho, Taiwan-born 5th Circuit Court of Appeals judge. I'd take over many American-born rhino judges. Leftists ruining it for patriotic foreign-born U.S. citizens. I'm with you on that. James Ho, we've read some to be fair, we have read some very good decisions and mostly like dissents, right? I mean, I think James Ho, he's like mostly a dissent or like a concurrence. But very good decisions, very smart, very textualist. And I think, in many ways, I think some foreign-born people understand and really feel a privilege in America. And they are grateful to be here. They're not trying to overturn the entire system. They're not trying to exploit the system on behalf of their home country brothers and sisters at America's expense. They recognize what communism actually is. They come from countries that are filled with corruption and fraud and destroyed. And so in many ways, they're more appreciative of America than many native-born Americans are. You see that all the time. You see these new polls out, 30% of the Democratic Party is excited for July 4th. I think I saw a poll. They're just not interested. They don't like the country at all. They think it's all perverted because it's not communist enough. They don't even understand free speech. They don't understand actually due process. They don't understand national integrity and things like this. So in many ways, foreigners have more appreciation than many Democrats do, which is a sad state of affairs. But for every good James Ho that we have, there's like 10 Sparkles Sukis. That's the problem. So if we could have, more James Ho's, in other words, I'm willing to lose a James Ho if we get rid of 10 Sparkles. And I would like a natural-born amendment for judges, for House representatives, for senators, for cabinet positions, natural-born across the board. It's good enough for the presidency. It should be good enough for Supreme Court judges. It should be good enough for everybody. And we may lose to James Ho, and that's a bummer. But James Ho's kids will be amazing. All right, so thank you, Weekend in Vegas. Good comment. Mock Schnell. Hey, afternoon, Rob. from this morning with the Dems smurfing. Yeah, we talked about Act Blue this morning on the members only morning stream. The Charlie Tree from Clinton presidency, when Tree was using San Fran Chinese residents for $10,000 donos and ended up in jail. Here we go. Man, I don't remember that name. Charlie Tree from Clinton. I think it was like in grade school. But yeah, I think it's been going on forever. And they just, commit fraud. Act Blue commits fraud. They cover it up. Barack Obama was taking foreign cash. He got a little FEC fine slap on the wrist. Not a big deal. Nobody does anything about it, so they just carry on. Hey, what's up? One old guy, Judge Suki something off. Did I get that right? Not exactly, but close. It's a tough one, so keep trying, one old guy. Thanks for the dono. Hey, biology always wins. Thank you for being here and for bringing in 5 new members. We got Mike Moran, courtesy of biology. Joe Walden, what's up? Deport her. YouTube is flagging deport her. Ugh. Gosh. Mr. Mike, what's up? Nubby Rose, I said that like, I didn't say that. I think I said impeach her. But, if she committed a crime, then maybe, yeah, denaturalize and deport. I'm for it. Nubby Rose, what's up? Carrie Ann Anthony in the house. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. New members. Thank you, biology always wins. Grab the members only stream from this morning. Another one from one old guy. Some very interesting names for Judge Suki. One old guy. Social security numbers, tax returns, both do not afford anyone the right to privacy. Judge Suki is a bad judge. She's a very bad judge. You're right about that, one old guy. Psychological projectionist. Independence equals freed from external influence equals the SAVE Act. Yeah, and to say that like this is a benefit for the American people, first of all, we just elected Trump. We just got Congress. We just reclaimed this issue. They said elections are perfect. They said it for 4 years. We said, no, they're not. We elected this single guy who said it was all rigged for 4 years. They tried to make that position a conspiracy theorist and say that there's no validity to it. And if that were true, we wouldn't have reelected Trump. So then she invalidates the entire system. And it's like a nationwide injunction. The whole system's bad because of privacy. For who? Illegal aliens, essentially. Thank you, thank you for that, psychological projectionist. Hey, Off-Label Pod. Impromptu movie night for us on Rumble tonight. Citizen Vigilante may be worth the watch tonight. I've seen a post or two about that, but I don't know much about the film. Citizen Vigilante. Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Hey, thank you, Off-Label. Have a great stream tonight over on Rumble. This old guy, as many as 25 million illegal aliens entered the country during the 4 years of Joe Biden. Schumer just said the Save America Act would remove 25 million people from the voter rolls. Any relationship between those numbers? Yeah, and it's such a huge amount of numbers. Like the scale is so big. Even if just 2%, less than that, 1% of them were actually voting in elections, that is dispositive in little threshold races. It's crazy. Thank you for that, this old guy. Very interesting coincidence. Zone Girl. Hey, what's up, Zone Girl? Yes, strange that the numbers are the same. No coincidences, just reality that they have registered illegals by the millions. Exactly right, Zone Girl. Man, thank you, Zone Girl, for the dono. Hey, Sparkle Suki, what's going on? The L stands for lackey. Sounds like a dancer's name in a bad 80s sci-fi movie set on space mining station in which space creatures looking to fall upon hapless dancers. Yeah, like out of a Star Wars movie or something. Interesting. Sounds like a good thesis for a novel. One old guy. Thank you for the dono, for the nice one. Hey, God bless Texas. Federal government made all the states to change drinking laws from 18 to 21 by saying that those that don't can't get highway funds. Voting is even more important. States that don't fix their voting lose all funds. Yeah, it's the power of the purse. And same things with like interstate highways, right? we got a system of federalism. We got a federal government and state governments. The feds really can't coerce the state on certain things, which is a good thing. And however, you do have to pay taxes. Thank you to the horrible 16th Amendment. And so if you want any of those funds coming back into your state, then you got to do certain things. It's the power of the purse used to cudgel people at the states to complying with federal law. And voting, I think, is critical. You can't let states co-opt the federal electoral process because it impacts everybody else. And we're seeing it. Zone Girl, hey, remember when they all crossed their white Biden shirts and they got flyers explaining how to vote and to vote for Biden? These were probably all paid for by USAID funds given to NGOs for this purpose. Yeah, Biden, please let us in. Do you think that those people would vote if there is no consequences for them? And there are virtually no consequences for them. Nobody was investigating it. There are investigations happening now, but there's, as a percentage of 25 million people, nothing, inconsequential, virtually zero, based on the total that they can prosecute. One old guy, they are afraid that they can't drive their cars into the voter polls. If agents are there, they may get a good effect. Well, if they're citizens, the ICE people will never do anything to them. So what are they so concerned about? Thank you, one old guy. OSPAC. Okay, so if Roberts and SCOTUS aren't going to constrain these judges, and Congress has decided that their comfy chairs and donor payoffs are too sweet to impeach these judges, skip the 60 vote issue, what can the administration do? It's a great question. I mean, little, truthfully. Congress should act, Supreme Court should act if they so Joe Biden, for example, literally ignored federal judges. We talked about that with the Department of Education case. A judge, I think it was in Tennessee or Texas somewhere, said, you can't do your transgender Title IX stuff. Women are women. They're not. Title IX doesn't apply to gays and trans. They said, yes, it does. Federal judge said, no, it doesn't. Stop it. They said, okay, yes, federal judge, we're stopping it. They did it anyways. I don't think that Trump can do anything like that as it relates to elections. There's just too many eyeballs on it. But he could just ignore them. You know, I mean, truthfully. Any response is clearly, and they'll impeach him and maybe remove him because the Senate, I think, would be fine with that. They don't want to fix it. Any response is clearly in the political realm. If they tell a judge to pound sand and in the squishy middle will go, oh, no, I don't like that, while simultaneously saying, I wish Trump would do something about this, what is the path forward? Yeah, it's limited. I mean, it really is limited. So right now, obviously, we've got appeals. Like there's a lot of appeals that need to go up. So a lot of options still. But it's going to go up to SCOTUS, I would imagine, at some point, maybe years from now. So maybe SCOTUS can save us. You know, politically, it's kind of a catch-22, because if you think the elections are rigged because of judges like this, then saying go vote feels like a flat solution, because it is. So what do? You just vote out the incumbents in the Senate, really, right? You just got to go vote out the bad incumbents until they actually care. But if they're rigged and the riggers are the ones who keep maintaining power because of the rigging, then how can you vote them out if you're just voting into a rigged system and they control all the mechanisms? It's like pushing the dummy button on the side of the building. Doesn't do anything. So the next path forward gets problematic once people realize that they're not actually in a governance of self-governance. It's just foreigners and leftist judges and big moneyed interests that really control things. Country breaks apart. So not looking good. But thank you, OSPAC. We'll see. Hopefully we can wake up some people. Use your voice, obviously, is always an answer. That's why we've got the First Amendment. Speak about it. Share these issues, share the videos, start your own videos, start your own posting, talk to friends, you know, stay civically engaged to see if we can shake things out. So the average mountain man, hey, what's up? 2 babies, 18 months as a Memo. Thank you, the average mountain man. We need to be taking a look at the nursing home type elderly voters. It seems like an obvious area for fraud. No doubt. Yeah, 100%. I would imagine it's a ton of that. just collecting ballots at these nursing homes. Grandma doesn't know what she's voting for. She's just happy to be here. And you've got people collecting ballots at homeless shelters, at treatment centers, at elderly care facilities, and so on and so forth. So I think that's smart. The average mountain man. One old guy, Skeletor Thune, the Goon, all the rhinos look like him. It is true. Yeah, I think if you're in the Senate long enough, you start to look like everybody else. King of Biltong. Fuel your day with dried sausage from Biltong USA. Clean ingredients, serious protein, perfect for road trips, work, or snack time. Anytime. It's at BiltongUSA.com. Use code Robert and you'll save 10% off. And it will be delicious. Hey, Just John Doe XOXO. Amazing, man. Long-time sub since Rittenhouse. That's the beginning. Thank you, Just John Doe. Love the growth of your channel. I think it's it ebbs and flows. Sometimes slower than it, but we're doing it. It's a long haul. I think 2027 will be a year when many of the lunatic judges like Sparkle Soup to Nuts finally get impeached. And I hope you're right, Just John Doe. It is Congress's duty. They are the check and balance on the judiciary. So they should do it. Check and balance. Even if they can't get over the actual removal threshold, the conviction threshold in the Senate, the House should impeach them and start setting them up. Because at least it's a stain, it's a blemish, it's an asterisk on their record. We don't want judges to be acting like this. And then honestly, it'll force the Supreme Court to look at it. House just goes impeach, 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 impeach. What that does is it's a signal to the Supreme Court that your branch is losing legitimacy. So get these judges in order or we're going to keep impeaching them. You don't want us to keep impeaching these judges? John Roberts gets all bent out of shape. You just say, well, there's Trump judges and Obama judges. He says, no, there's not. Yes, there are, John. Wake up. That's the reality. You've got Sparkle Suknan, who's out here eliminating entire verification systems because she says she doesn't like the person who's actually running them. And she is a Biden judge through and through. So you got to rein that in or else your credibility will go in the gutter and Congress should be happy to facilitate that. Why should we prop up institutions that are lacking in integrity? We shouldn't. They should be reformed or eliminated. So one old guy, the Swalego commemorative spoon. It is only two, and that's all you need. Which is the little spoon? Definitely Gallego. Yeah, he's definitely a little spoon. Swalwell's big spoon over him for sure. They are here for a short time and for a good time. Get yours today. All proceeds go to sporting tickets and high price parties. Big spoon, little spoon. Man, somebody should make those. That's hilarious. Big spoon, Swalwell, little spoon, Gallego. Oh, slimmer stubby. So I guess now the left and morons in SCOTUS want to reconstitute racial laws, but Republicans and conservatives are trying to bring back Jim Crow. Yeah, it's true. If you're a black person and a cop interfaces with you, there's a different standard for you than if you're a white person. They just found that. So, all right. Thank you, Slimmer. Wild times. Feels like a reversion a bit, but okay. Kitanji was in the majority on that one too. Hey, what's up, Rob? The oath of allegiance for a lawful permanent resident to naturalized citizen should be used to be able to deny their citizenship. Yeah, it is. Yeah, they lied under oath if they support their home country against the U.S. Ilhan Omar as one example. They do. Yeah, the oath is not explicitly the oath, but also the whole verification process. Like, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Are you loyal to foreign governments? All those things are made under oath during those proceedings. And we've covered some cases here. They are denaturalizing people who lied, committed other felonies, lied about that. There was that one drug dealer who was like trafficking drugs on behalf of her like Mexican narco terrorist person. We covered a bunch of the denaturalizations. And there should be much more. It's like any other contract. Why should you get the benefit of your fraudulent contract? You don't in any other arena in life, but apparently these non-citizens do. Illegals. John, if a bulge in your pants is enough to get searched, I'll never have a moment of peace. But because John's hung like a kielbasa, I think. Is that what it's called? Those Polish sausages? Or you've just got a bunch of guns in there. Could be either way. Maybe you're just a little fella with a big pistol. Who knows? Thank you, John. Good to see you. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's why I get stopped all the time in DC. Everywhere I go, they're like, will you lift your shirt up? I'm like, it's all me, bro. They're like, all right, carry on, carry on. All right, all right. Rob, read the oath for naturalization. I think that shows what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means. Should be interpreted from the illegals do not fit this. Their child should not be a U.S. citizen. Yeah, that's right. And they don't reside here either. Many of them, especially the birth tourists. Subject to the jurisdiction means that you are actually subjecting yourself to the nation state, not violating the nation state and the sovereignty of the country by coming in illegally. Hey, one old guy, and thank you for the nice dono, Rob. One old guy, no relation to Dick Grayson, a.k.a. Robin and Nightwing. I feel like I've heard those names, but I don't know much about them. Thank you, one old guy. Hey, Rob, please like this stream so that Rumble and the YouTube algorithms share the stream out to like-minded individuals. Thank you, Rob. It's true. The algorithms appreciate your input, and we appreciate it too. Dan, Ilhan's third and fourth husband was doing better while married to the medical doctor. Is that the guy we just saw? I'm sure they're rich, but all that money is probably now in a Somali bank account. Yeah, but it's not L-shaped, though. It's not L-shaped. It's normal-shaped. Thank you. Michael Swade. Judge just dismissed Kilmar's case for vindictive prosecution. Ridiculous. So that was actually, I think, a couple weeks ago, Michael Swade. You might just be seeing that. We covered it here. And my understanding is the DOJ has now filed their notice of appeal on that. So you may be seeing that news recirculated. But that happened a little bit ago. It might be 2 weeks ago. In Tennessee, right? I mean, unless it's a new one, unless it's pretty sure you're talking about the Tennessee criminal case. The other one is the immigration case out of Maryland, Judge Zenas. So, but the DOJ is appealing the Tennessee dismissal. I think I saw that. So you might be seeing some new stuff in the headlines as it relates to that. But thank you, Michael Swade. Yeah, I got that one queued up in mine too. Hey, Chris Kinsey. Can you check a civil rights lawsuit for me? It's mine and it's shocking. Yeah, I can do that, Chris. I can take a look at whatever's going on. Don't want to do it here publicly if it's your lawsuit, but I am a lawyer. So you can send me an email if you'd like me to take a look at it. Send me some docs and let me know if I'm not a civil rights lawyer, but if I can help in any way, happy to do it or try to connect you with someone who can. But yeah, shoot me an email, robert@spotlightlawyer.com. And I'll take a look. Thank you for the dono, Chris. Hope you're doing well. And hopefully it's not shocking in a bad way, but it very well may be. What's up, Dan? Bundler from Clinton's time. Then they continue to receive money for stays in the Lincoln bedroom and in the White House. I do remember that story, yeah. I do remember that story for sure. Hey, Jim Tells You, we'll send you a raid. If you're still sticking around with us, Jim Tells You will be streaming. We'll send you over there. Yeah, Sharpie guy, you sent us a gift? Man, thank you. I varied from your list because we got something similar, and it was one of those things you just never knew you needed, but was so much a necessity, and we used it all the time. The second one is straight off your list. Blessings. Thank you, Sharpie guy. Yeah, you guys have been extremely generous. So we got our baby coming in like T-minus 30 days now. So we're figuring that out. But we got some, thank you, Sharpie guy, for sending it over. We're going to make sure we send proper thank yous to everybody who is sending us some love for new baby Gouveia coming soon. Sharpie guy, have you noticed that towards the end of the week, we are experiencing wins only to get crapped on Monday and Tuesday? Today was a big one. Yeah, we got a lot of crap decisions today. And it's a bummer. I like covering them less than winning. But we had to talk about this one. There was also some other judge rejected the subpoenas in Minnesota. And there were a couple other ones. I was like, gosh, like they all timed them up. They released them all today. So, yeah, Sharpie guy, it's up, it's ups and downs. So we got to make sure we're staying on top of even the down days. But thank you for the notice. I noticed it too. Doan, anyone mention that Alan Greenspan died at 100? We didn't talk about it today, but I did see the headline. And I don't know much about the guy, but 100, it's pretty good. Pretty dang good. So thank you, Don, for the heads up. I don't know. Was he good? Was he a good dude or not? I don't know. No idea. But thank you, Don, for the flag. May he rest in peace. Dan, over time, there were 8 federal judges who were impeached and convicted from office. Very small number. Many others left, and a small number were impeached but not convicted. Yeah, it's a very small number, and those were like pretty bad. Like those were like actual bribery cases, things like that. Like a judge was getting bribed by the mob. But the Congress needs to flex. We just can't let these judges literally usurp power from the executive branch and from the congressional branch. Not good. Dan, bananas, cell phones, guns. What difference does it make? Like Hillary, what difference at this point does it make? Could be a gun, could be a banana, could be a Vienna sausage. I don't know what's in there. Melanie, Republicans are traitors. The Judiciary Committee is a joke. Yeah, some of them definitely are. Some of them definitely are. And I feel like they just come out and deliver slop for us. Oh, we're working on this and doing that and doing the other thing. And they're really not. Alan, thank you, Alan, for becoming a member. Check out this morning's members only stream. We talked about the Act Blue CEO, Regina. And Congress, again, is sending another letter over to her. Give us these documents or else we're going to hold you in contempt. She's like, okay, here, good. I needed some new toilet paper, so perfect. We'll see. You know, there's only so much that you can do, but we think they can do a lot more. So we'll just leave it at that. But thank you, friends. Those were some amazing comments. Thank you for the donos. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support and for being here on the day. See if we got any other comments on X or on locals, and then we'll wrap it up. And of course, we'll come back tomorrow morning. We've got 10 a.m. coming in hot with fresh out of the oven Supreme Court analysis. We'll see what they drop. Hey, Rick D, the hummingbird feeder on my back deck today, face palms. Oh, that little squirrel getting into it, having a little drink. Hilarious. Axel goes wild for squirrels here. Wild, our dog. He's such like a well-behaved boy. But then he sees a squirrel and he just turns into friggin' like a Tasmanian devil. It's wild. And he'll catch him too. So anyways, shout out. Man, we love hummingbird feeders too. I haven't seen many hummingbirds here. But you know what we have seen, which is very new for us? Fireflies, lantern bugs. They're coming out. They're cool as hell. Somebody said that they're a pest or something and I shouldn't like them, but Alexis and I walk and we're like, wow, this is like magical. It's like out of Avatar. All these bugs lighting up. Hey, Rick, we don't have that in Arizona. Rick D, how is this not a conflict of Terry versus Ohio, which is the Terry stop case, where SCOTUS said that if an officer had reasonable suspicion that a person is armed, they can do a pat down to see if the person is armed for officer safety? Well, yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a different context. One is in the context of an arrest. So like if for officer safety, if you're arresting a person, then you're patting them down. But when it comes to an investigation, it's really about like, what are you seeing? Can you, and again, follow the bouncing ball. Can you like, what do you see? Based on what you see and describe, can you have articulable facts that will lead you to describe reasonable suspicion that opens up the investigation? From there, more articulable facts that lead to a probable cause determination. Then from that probable cause, that leads to an arrest. Then once you have an arrest, you trigger a bunch of other exceptions and search capabilities to the Fourth Amendment, like a search incident to arrest. So once you pull somebody out of the car, for example, like their wingspan comes into the analysis. This was before all of that. So this was just about essentially a consent search, which I don't even think would implicate a lot of that. But it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I guess maybe they'll revisit it. But thank you for the question, Rick D. Good to see you. Hope you're well. The new legal team for Carmelo has been announced for his appeal. I wonder if they're white or not, because they said Their white lawyers, I think, were bad. NAAC president. Gary Bledsoe, Russell Wilson, Brooke Cluse, Ben Crump. Wild. All right, so they're appealing them. We talked about the new videos this weekend. Dan, you are required to disclose weapons during a traffic stop and required by your concealed carry permit. Yeah, and they'll hit you with another crime for that if you don't. If you don't announce that. Do you have any weapons in the car? You say no. Turns out yes. New crime. So always best, I think, in general, to just disclose. Dan, thank you, Dan, for that. Alan, thank you for the dono. Let's see if we got any comments on X. And then we'll call it a night, my friends, and it will be a beautiful rest until we're back tomorrow, bright and early, with SCOTUS news. Hey, B Torn, what's going on? Lot of links from B Torn. Jesse. Yeah, how can it be legal for foreigners with dual citizenship to be a judge? Yeah, it is. It just is legal. There is no such thing as dual citizenship, says CR. The very concept is a violation of the oath of citizenship. Anyone taking an Article 5, Clause 3 oath cannot, Article 6, Clause 3 oath cannot hold more than one citizenship. You wrote about that on Substack. Amazing, CR. So friends, check that out over on X. B Torn, bunch of posts. Neuro D, thanks for sharing our locals, watching thewatchers.locals.com if you want to join as a member over there. Supreme Court allows a ruling that ends a tool to protect minority voters. And you wrote a Rittenhouse rap? Man, B Torn, you're amazing. Amazing. Spud says fireflies and lanternflies are not the same. All right, well, I don't know anything about any of them. I'm from Arizona. I don't think we have either of them. Chris with the civil rights lawsuit. Thank you. It's over, but it involves federal judges, a son, a computer technician who hacked the Lorain County jail system and created a scheduled event that I'm not in. What? Yeah, we like the fireflies. Fireflies and lanternflies are not the same. I don't know. Whatever the bug that lights up as we walk down the street, it's very majestic. It feels like Avatar. Like, wow. This is a mystical, magical place. Glow bugs, I think, is another word for them. They're cool. There's a couple streets here that just like they have the right trees or something, and you walk through. It's like very tree-y, just like zip zapping all over the place. They're pretty cool. So thanks, Chris. Yeah, send it over. I'll take a look at it. It's been good. All right, so friends, lovely stream. Thank you for being here. Happy Monday. Once again, bright and early tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. 7 Pacific. Supreme Court should be dropping. I think we have 17 cases left. So we'll see what they have for us tomorrow morning. And then we'll see what they have for us on Thursday morning. And then maybe even in July. But we'll be back to do it again. Until we do, I hope your rest is beautiful and outstanding. Big thank yous to our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you to John, to Muffin Rando, to Donut Mind Me. Thank you to K Bean, to Carrie B, to Neuro D, to Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and Just Rhonda, modding the fort down for us. Keeping things nice and orderly around here. But we'll pause for the evening. We'll have a tremendous rest. We'll come back in the morning. So wherever you're watching, come back and join us because we'll be here. And it's Supreme Court time. And as always, in order to do this and that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very, very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning. Be well and bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides, lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet, because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide, fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share, and bring a friend who's ready to care.